Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome back. We are just going to be talking through our next note sheet, which is Unit 8, Notes 2-1. So first, to start off with, I want to do just a little bit of review of those simplifying radicals, kind of get our brain back into it after the weekend. So first of all, we're taking a look at the number 40. Remember, we want to break this down entirely into primes. So 40 can be broken down to 4 and 10. Okay, remember when things end with a 0, I'm thinking, okay, that has to end in a 10. Okay, so I always have that kind of in the back of my mind. Well, 4 I can break down to 2 and 2, and 10 I can break down to 2 and 5. So now I have it entirely down to primes. So we're multiplying 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. And now we want to take our pairs and pull them out. So I have that orange. I'm going to pull that out, and I have a pair of 2's. And then left underneath the radical, I have 2 times 5. Remember, you want to actually multiply those out and get the square root of 10. Now let's take a look at number 2. When we're dividing, we want to take the two radicals and we're going to go ahead and split them up. So taking a look at radical 50, I can break that down to 25 and 2, and 25 breaks down to 5 and 5. Okay, so then underneath that radical, I have 2 times 5 times 5. Breaking down 98, well, I see that it's even, okay, so I try dividing it by 2, and that's going to give me 2 and 49. Which I'm going to break down to 7 and 7. Then underneath the radical, I have 2 times 7 times 7. So let's go ahead and pull out some of those pairs. Okay, so first I notice I have a pair here that I could pull out. So then here I'm left with 5 radical 2. Here I have a pair of 7's I can pull out, and then I'm left with 7 radical 2. Last step when we're dividing is to write that radical over itself, cross those out, and I'm left with 5/7. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead and try number 3 on your own. Remember, with those variables, it's not that different. You're still trying to pull out those pairs of letters. Okay, so let's take a look at adding and subtracting radicals. Okay, so it's not going to be too much different than what we've been doing before. Okay, it's kind of like I've always said, you have all the tools in your toolbox. Now we're just going to take certain tools and use them at once. Okay, so it's nothing new. There's no new concepts. We're just using them in a different way. Okay, so first of all, you need to simplify all of the radicals in the expression. Okay, so you might have 2 or 3 radicals that you need to simplify. So you need to simplify all of them. Then you need to combine like radicals. Okay, so that means they have the same number under the sign. Look at it this way. It's kind of similar to having 4x plus 4x. You can combine that to be 8x. Similarly, if you had 4x and 2y, you couldn't combine those to equal anything. Same thing as if you were to have, for example, here, this first part, okay, if you look there, 4 square root of 5 and 7 square root of 5, those can be combined. Then when you look at these next ones, if one of them has a square root of 5 and one of them has a square root of 3, then we cannot add them together. Okay, that's the subtle difference that we're working towards today. Okay, so you want to be looking for those similar radicals. All right, let's take a look at some of these. So the first couple, all we're going to be doing is just simply trying to find the like radicals. Okay, so here we have 4 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 5 minus 6 square root of 2. So I can only combine things with the same radical. First thing I want to do is simplify. Well, I notice square root of 2 is prime, so that radical is simplified. Square root of 5, that's prime, so that radical is simplified. And again, square root of 2 is simplified. So now I want to go ahead and combine my like radicals. These numbers out front, this 2 and this minus 6, are kind of acting like coefficients. Okay, they're kind of acting like coefficients. So 2 minus 6 is going to be negative 4. And then we're going to keep that radical 2 the same. So all I did was add this and this. So I added those big numbers on the outside and I kept the radical the same. It would be the same as if this was written 2x minus 6x. Okay, we would call that negative 4x. Same thing here, except we're using radicals. Again, notice that I didn't change the radical itself. Okay, I just changed numbers on the outside. And that square root of 5 can't be added with anything, so it's just kind of off by itself. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. Now, this is square root of 3 is a prime, square root of 3 is a prime. Well, 6, I'm going to break down to 2 and 3. Okay, so actually the square root of 6 is a fully simplified radical, but we still want to check. We don't want to leave any radicals unsimplified. Okay, so this is fully simplified. So the next thing I want to do is combine like terms. So I notice that this term and this term, they both have the same radical. Okay, they both have radical 3. So I'm going to take the 4 plus the 6. So 4 plus 6 is 10. And then again, I'm going to keep that radical 3 the same and just add the numbers on the outside. Last but not least, I don't want to forget about this guy who doesn't have anything that it can be added with, so I'm just going to write that as the square root of 6. Okay, so I have 10 radical 3 minus the square root of 6. Let's take a look at number 6. Okay, so for number 6, first and foremost, we have 2 square root of 3, square root of 2, and square root of 2, and square root of 3. Well, I know that the square roots of 3 are going to go together, okay, and that the square roots of 2 are going to go together. All right, now a lot of students ask me what order we need to add them in, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. Remember, 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, so the order doesn't really matter. Sometimes I like to put my radicals in descending order just so that I can keep track of them all. So I'm going to start with the square root of 2 first. So I have the square root of 2 minus 6 square root of 2. Now, square root of 2 is fully simplified. Okay, so now we're taking basically, if there's no number out front, that's the same as having 1 square root of 2. So I'm taking 1 square root of 2 minus 6 square root of 2, and that's going to give us negative 5 square root of 2. Next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to simplify these ones. So I have 2 square root of 3 plus 4 square root of 3. So I'm going to add the 4 and the 2, and that gives me 6, and then I want to keep that square root of 3 the same. Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead and try number 7 yourselves. Okay, so I will give you the hint that all of the radicals are fully simplified, so you just need to go through and add the ones that have the same number underneath the radical. Remember, you don't need to change what's underneath the radical, only what's on the outside. Okay, so next, let's take a look at number 8. Okay, so now we're going to have to do a little bit of simplifying. So square root of 3, that's already simplified, but I do need to simplify 27. So I have 9 and 3, and then I bring down 3 and 3. So 27 becomes 3 times 3 times 3, bring out a pair of 3's, and I have 3 radical 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write out that original expression, okay, but I'm going to write it with the new simplified radical. So now I have 4 square root of 3 minus 3 square root of 3. So again, I'm going to keep these radicals the same, and I'm going to just subtract the coefficients out front. So 4 minus 3 is just 1 radical 3, or you could just write that as radical 3. Both of those are acceptable answers for that one. Okay, let's take a look at number 9. So for number 9, we want to split up 18. That'll give us 9 and 2. Break that down to 3 and 3. So then I have 2. I'm going to keep that coefficient out front. So I have 2 times 3 times 3. Notice that I kept that 2 there. This is going to become really, really important as we're moving through these. Okay, so I'm going to take out a pair of 3's, but now I'm going to bring them to the outside. Notice how I already have that 2 out there. So what I need to do is I actually need to multiply by that 2 when I bring the 3 out. So don't forget about that coefficient. When you bring a pair out, you need to multiply by what's on the outside. So 2 times 3 is going to give me 6 square root of 2. Okay, so that's 2 square root of 18, fully simplified. So again, don't forget this multiplication step. So next, let's write out what we have as our expression, and let's go from there, okay? So I'm going to keep 6 radical 2 from here. That's going to represent that guy. And then I'm going to also have just the square root of 2, because the square root of 2 is fully simplified. Now, if there's no number out front, remember that number is just 1. So here I basically have 6 square root of 2 plus 1 square root of 2. So 6 plus 1 is 7. So my final answer is 7 square root of 2. Okay, let's keep trying a couple more. So let's go ahead and let's try number 10. So for number 10, again, I need to simplify some of those radicals. So I'm going to start by simplifying 125. Well, 125 breaks down to 25 and 5. So then I get 5 and 5. So left underneath the radical here, I have 5 times 5 times 5. So I'm going to pull out a pair of 5s, and that's going to be written as 5 square root of 5. 4 square root of 5 is fully simplified. 5 is a prime number. So this radical right here is already taken care of. So let's take a look at 45. We have 9 and 5, which breaks down to 3 and 3. So then we have 3 times 3 times 5. Take out a pair, and then we have 3 radical 5. Okay, so now we've simplified our radicals. Let's go ahead and write them out as an expression. So I have this radical from here, then 4 square root of 5 stayed the same, and lastly I have this radical from here. And now I notice that they're all square roots of 5. So I can go ahead and I can add up each of those. So I have 5 plus 4 plus 3, and that gives me 12 radical 5. So I'm going to have you guys do number 11, but let's start by simplifying it together. Okay, so 12 I can break down to 4 and 3, and that gives me 2 and 2. So here I have 2 times the radical of 2 times 2 times 3. Pull out a pair, and then I have 2 times 2. Remember, when you pull out that pair, you want to multiply it by the coefficient. 2 times 2 is 4 square root of 3. Okay, breaking down 27, 9 and 3, 3 and 3. So then I have 3 times the square root of 3 times 3 times 3. And bring out a pair of 3's. Again, we want to multiply what's on the outside with the pair. So this is going to give us 9 square root of 3. Last but not least, I'm going to simplify this one. I'm going to do that over here. So I have 2 times the square root of 48. Well, that gives me 16 and 3, 4 and 4, 2 and 2. So then we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Take out some of those pairs. So then you have 8 square root of 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and write out all those terms. So I have 4 square root of 3 plus 9 square root of 3 plus 8 square root of 3. So I want you to go through and add those together yourself. All right, let's take a look at number 12. So for number 12, again, we need to simplify and break all of those down. Okay, so taking a look at number 18, that can be broke down into 9 and 2, 3 and 3. So then underneath the radical, I have this, pulling out a pair of 3s. So then on the outside, I have 3 times 3, left with the square root of 2. That gives me 9 square roots of 2. Okay, let's take a look at the square root of 3 times the square root of 12. Well, we know that it's going to break down to this. So I'm going through these kind of quickly, so if you need to pause the video to help yourself, feel free. So that pair comes out and it's being multiplied by what's on the outside. Last but not least, square root of 2 square root of 27, 9 and 3, 3 and 3, so then I get 2, 3 times 3 times 3, take out a pair, 2 times 3, square root of 3, 6 square roots of 3. Okay, so next, what I'm going to have you guys do is you're going to go ahead and add those together. So you notice that you can only add a couple of those together. Okay, so you can only add those square roots of 3 together. So this 9 square root of 2 is going to stay by itself. And then we're going to add those two. 6 square root of 3 plus 6 square root of 3 gives us 12 square root of 3. So that's your final answer right there. Go ahead and try number 13 on your own. You only need to simplify the second two radicals. Now I'm going to get number 14 set up for you guys, and then I'm going to have you finish it up on your own. Okay, so you're going to have a couple of these that you have to do on your own on the note sheet. So for number 14, you're going to break 18 down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down the prime factorizations for you, and then I'm going to leave it up to you guys to simplify it from there. So for 24, you get 6 and 4, 2 and 3, 2 and 2. Okay, so look at those radicals individually. Now remember, you need to multiply by the coefficient on the outside, and you can only add radicals that are like radicals. Okay, so don't add them if they don't have the same number underneath, and you don't need to change the number underneath the radical. Okay, same thing for number 15. Once you're done, go ahead and bring me up your completed note sheet. Thanks for listening. You guys rock.